All right, the bizarre man that Democrats think can deliver them Texas. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. For years, Texas has been Democrats' white whale. They continually believe that they've pumped enough Central American immigrants and blue state refugees into this border state to actually win an election, and they're continually disappointed. House husband Beto O'Rourke tried 3 times to win Texas with his wife's dad's money, and 3 times Beto O'Rourke failed. Their latest hero is James Talarico, who has got to be one of the weirdest people in the entire state. Talarico is super religious. He's also super woke at the same time. So try to put those together. He's basically the embodiment of the Marxist takeover of the church, a calculated move we've seen by people who long seeked to destroy faith in this country, but settled for simply taking it over and indoctrinating the faithful. Take a listen to James Talarico and imagine what the average Texan voter would think hearing this.
God is non-binary. Trans children are God's children, made in God's own image.
Modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6.
Did they teach you in Sunday school that Jesus Christ himself was a radical feminist?
Where do we make these people? Where do they come from? I haven't figured that out. God is non-binary, 6 genders, quite a departure from Adam and Eve. And Jesus Christ was a radical feminist. Okay, James. Add to that a total obsession with trans kids as well.
Something that you love that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children who showed up yesterday at the state capitol.
He just pulled that out of the clear blue sky. This is his ticket. That's what he wants to talk about. If James Talarico ever had full control of Texas, he just wants a Senate seat right now. Had he full control of the state, parents would be powerless. They'd get a whiff of a confused 4th grader. They'd ship them off to be sliced up before the end of the school day. Talarico, of course, is right now moving hard back to the middle after winning his primary 2 months ago. But he won't be able to hide from the insane things that he actually believes. How about ending all incarceration? How does that play in Texas? And letting the criminal underworld completely decimate the state. Talarico, all for it.
Poverty is violence. Pollution is violence. And yes, prison is violence. It's hard to imagine a world without prisons, but it's also hard to imagine a world without telegrams and cassette tapes. Just because it's hard to imagine doesn't mean you shouldn't.
Texas Senate. Poverty is violence, so we're all just entitled to live a wealthy life at this point. Every person on the planet. These are Marxist talking points, clear as day. And of course, prisons are violence too. Again, how does all of this play in Texas? He wants to end incarceration and let the murder rate just skyrocket like it does in every blue city that tries this. Innocent people can just die by the thousands, so the misunderstood killers are not treated cruelly by the justice system. Don't worry, it probably won't happen to his family. It's idiocy. He's a lunatic. Talarico is creating a stir right now among all the radicals in Texas. But as the general public gets to know him over the next 6 months, this should turn into a disaster. His only prayer would be really low turnout and terrible enthusiasm for Republicans in the race. And Trump has just done the job of preventing that by endorsing Ken Paxton to be the candidate on the other side in this race, the state's overperforming attorney general, who has become one of the most popular and effective checks against left-wing radicalism like James Talarico that this country has seen. Paxton does it all. Of course, the media seems to think the Paxton endorsement was a huge mistake. They think that the race, even as it stands right now in Texas, is somehow James Talarico's to lose.
I've been calling Texas fool's gold. Well, looks like the Republicans may just pick a fool that may turn over the gold to Democrats. You have Talarico, who actually knows how to win elections.
It would have been competitive probably even if Cornyn had won the race. But if Ken Paxton wins the primary, Texas is not just in play, but there's an argument that James Talarico is the favorite there.
He's at a significant fundraising disadvantage for Talarico, who has shown remarkable political skill.
James Talarico could very well win in Texas. James Talarico is polling better than any Democrat in at least 24 years.
Okay, he's polling better than any Democrat in 24 years. He's going to try and win the middle with all the nonsense that you just listened to. He's going to try and run from all of that. He can't hide from it. And again, this is Texas. He's not running in L.A. This is Texas. The president today on the tarmac with a much more realistic look at this upcoming race.
I believe the Texas candidate, Ken Paxton, I think he'll win. I think probably he'll win very substantially. And I think he'll go on to defeat a very defective candidate, a candidate that believes in 6 genders. And he takes hits at Jesus Christ. And he's wearing a mask 6 months ago. Anybody wearing a mask 6 months ago doesn't get it. And he's a vegan. He's a vegan in Texas. And you can't get elected as a vegan in Texas.
You can't get elected as a vegan in Texas. That sounds right. Katie Zacharia, political analyst, joins us now. Ben Ferguson, host of the Ben Ferguson Show. Good to have you both. Ben,
good to be here.
Assuming he wins the primary in 6 days, Ken Paxton has 6 months to show Texas who James Talarico really is. And for some reason, the media thinks this guy has got it in the bag, which is wild.
It is wild, and I'm totally fine with it. I just want to know, when does James actually stop being a white guy? Because you want to go back to crazy things he said. I want to get the quote exactly right. He said, white skin is evil, and it carries the virus of racism. So if you can be a dude that says you're a chick, which he says is in the Bible, and he says that, you know, that Jesus is non-binary, how long until this guy says, I'm the only black man running for the Senate in Texas, or the only Mexican that is running in this campaign for Texas? Because apparently you can just change and like be whatever you want to be. He also preached a sermon once, this is amazing, declaring that the Bible actually says that abortion is okay and that the Bible is pro-abortion. So, like, if you think we've got, like, we've only got the beginning of what this dude believes. Like, it's just, he'll be black by the end, trans by the end, and he'll have an abortion by the end as a man. Get ready.
And again, I just asked, where the hell do we make these people? Where are these kinds of people produced in this country? I've never met anything like a James Talarico, and he thinks he's going to be the senator from Texas. Katie, let's talk the Paxton moment here for a second. Cornyn canceling some campaign events, going back to Washington. Hard to imagine he would have done that if he's not thinking that this might be done for him. The president made a really big move yesterday, endorsing the challenger to a sitting senator. I think it was the right move, though.
Historic move. Ken Paxton is the greatest attorney general in the United States, and we would trade him any day for Rob Bonta and send them to Texas, but obviously not electable because he cares about the Constitution and border security and election integrity. Ken Paxton should be credited for really saving our country from a massive flood. So we had the flood under Biden, and if it weren't for Ken Paxton and his decisive leadership as Attorney General, we would have probably over even triple the amount of criminal illegal aliens that came into this country. He was willing to do the hard work and actually hold the line and toe the line of the law. And this man is exactly who we need in the Senate. He will support President Trump all the way. Historic endorsement, but it also speaks to President Trump's endorsement power. The big, beautiful endorsement, there is nothing like it. There's never been anything like it, Rob, in the history of our nation.
Like 37-0 or something in this one. You know, I want to talk, Texas for a second. When Biden blew the border open, you saw blue districts in Texas turning red. That's how much people in Texas know you need to have a border. Here's James Talarico on border security while running for Senate in Texas.
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
A giant welcome mat out front, Ben. We tried that for 4 years.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is part of his broader ideology. He genuinely believes that there's no such thing as a criminal. He genuinely believes that you should let out every criminal that is in jail and abolish prisons. He also wants to get rid of ICE agents, police agents, and then you listen to him there. He thinks that we should just have a wide open border. It doesn't matter if you're on the terrorist watch list. Come on into America. Come on into Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no bad guys in the world. We'll give you a big hug and you know, whatever you identify as, we'll just make you an American, give you amnesty, and give you a bunch of government aid.
Yeah.
That's why he's going to lose, by the way. Like, Ken Paxton is going to win this thing decisively. It's what I've been saying in the White House for a long time now. John Cornyn was a rhino. People in Texas did not like him. He did not stand firm on border security. By the way, he didn't stand up for the SAVE Act either, and that's what really cost him in Texas.
I think Talarico got a bad hand here by getting Paxton. Everybody thinks that Cornyn would have been a better candidate. I think that's absurd.
Only
I
the
think
Washington
he's going to be
Only the
motivating.
Washington elite believe that.
Paxton is very Texas, absolutely. Real quick before I let you go, Katie, I got 10 seconds left. Thomas Massey ousted last night. That was the other big move. The president won a big one there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the president keeps winning, and he's eliminating people that are absolutely not behind the American people's agenda, which is to effectively institute what we all voted for with President Trump. So, and he got rid of Bill Cassidy too. This has just been historic primary season.
He's making moves against the people that make it hard for the greater party to get stuff done, which is what politics is all about. And it's, if you've got a different perspective, I can appreciate that. But if you're making it hard to get stuff done, you don't have those kinds of poison pills on the Democrat side. And Trump's trying to knock them off. Katie, Zacharia, Ben Ferguson, good to have you both. Thanks so much. The other Trump dagger this week, as we just said, was for Senator Bill Cassidy, ousted from his primary, retiring him from Congress, retiring him from the Senate. The race now heads to a runoff. Congresswoman Julia Letlow and State Treasurer John Fleming are going to face off to try and get that Senate seat in June. And John Fleming joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you on. You previously worked in the Trump administration. You've got MAGA right behind you. The president endorsed your competitor in this race. I want to just ask you what your plan is to counter that.
Well, Ms. Letlow was endorsed by President Trump. However, that was because of strong recommendations from Jeff Landry, our governor, who himself is not conservative. He promoted her, and his cronies in Washington blocked my access to the president. I did later talk with the president, but her voting record is to the left of Bill Cassidy. I warned people back in 2014 when Bill Cassidy was running for Senate that he was going to disappoint them. And now I'm reminding people of that today about Julia Letlow. Her voting record is, again, arguably to the left of Bill Cassidy.
So your argument here is, Trump is obviously trying to clear out these kinds of people from the Senate. He's trying to make that move right now. You think he could be making a mistake by pushing Letlow into that seat?
Well, President Trump makes a lot of endorsements. He depends on other people to vet these people. And I think Jeff Landry did this for his own political benefit. So, as I say, there's no comparison. She's big on DEI. She was a big promoter of DEI. She comes from higher education. She ended up voting for a bill under Biden, which was under USAID, that paid for foreign abortions, as well as sex reassignment surgeries for children and other DI initiatives. She voted against an amendment on the FAA reauthorization in 2023 that would have taken DEI out of the FAA. I don't want my airline pilot to be promoted or assigned based purely on their gender or color. So I think these are important distinctions between her and me. I'm one of the founders of the House Freedom Caucus. I was President Trump's deputy chief of staff in the White House in the last year. So I would let your viewers decide on this one.
Okay. All right. You made a good point. Made a good case there, sir. John Fleming, we appreciate you running for Senate in the state of Louisiana. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Coming up here, Miami's Cuban community erupts as former President Raul Castro is indicted. Another hint that something much bigger is coming for Cuba soon. We got that next with Congressman Carlos Gimenez. And then later in news from the left, meet the nut job leading the Democrat field in a Texas primary.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
Started doing the Heimlich maneuver. That didn't work. We had people around us that were in the medical field, and they said, hey, you're doing everything right. Then people started shouting, get the life back, get the life back. Probably been a minute and a half, 2 minutes without any oxygen. He was completely gray. She put the life back right on his face, did it. He gasped for air. She did it again a few seconds later, and a grape hit the back of the mask.
And the ambulance would not have been there in time to save Jeremiah. He was gone.
Be prepared. Go to lifeact.net today.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
All right, welcome back. From time to time, we have our boss, Newsmax CEO Chris Ruddy, on to discuss politics, also company developments, things like that. And Chris joins us again tonight. And good to see you again, sir. Since we last talked, we've seen obviously a lot has happened. We've seen a war in Iran. We've seen major domestic political developments. We've had Trump's trip to China as well. And we're also seeing polling for the president right now that looks pretty rough. A lot of that, I think, is being blamed on the Iran war. Just wanted to start there and get your thoughts.
You know, Rob, thank you for having me on. Mark Twain famously said, statistics don't lie, people do. And I think the modern version of that is polls don't lie, the pollsters do. And we looked at, there was a recent poll ABC had that had the president at 35%, pretty low number, right? ABC, Washington Post. So we start digging into it. John McLaughlin's a pollster. We ask him. He looks at the backup data and he finds out that in the survey, they only surveyed 35% of the people who were Trump voters. Well, you saw the last election. Yeah. Trump won the election with almost 50%. So what they're doing is they ratchet the number. If you look at polls that are honest, they're all still in the mid-40s for the president. In this situation that we're facing, the political environment, it's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
So, and I think the other thing is the economic numbers the president have are simply great. Stock market record highs we've never had in history. That's a leading indicator of where the economy is going. He tamed inflation and unemployment, brought it way down from where Biden had it a couple of years ago. There's a little hiccup with the inflation because of the Iran war. GDP numbers have been really good despite these shutdowns. And our big beautiful bill that the president put in, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. Every American family is getting a $2,500 tax cut this year. They're only feeling it this year.
Yeah.
So I think good things are happening. It's just the media, it's a messaging problem, really, I think, for the president.
It always is, you know, and he's always up against a media apparatus that largely hates him, that I think does a great disservice to the country in the way they cover him. But I do at the same time think, I mean, obviously the inflation number from the last month was kind of a disappointment. I know he'd love to get this thing in Iran wrapped up. And with that, let's talk about Israel for a second. You were the first major media figure to sit down with Netanyahu not too long ago. The war is taking longer than Netanyahu expected, I think, than Trump expected as well.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when I met the prime minister in Israel, In March, he said we were 50% through the war. So I think he was figuring it'd be maybe 3 or 4 weeks longer. It appears to have gone on longer, but if you look at really what's happened, the war was over sometime in March. Major hostilities have ended. What's really going on now is what is going to happen in a post-war environment. Will Iran behave among civilized nations? Will it keep its nuclear program below thresholds? President Trump, to his credit, is saying, I'm not going to have a situation like we had in Iraq where we left and ISIS was all over the place spreading terror. He wants to make sure there's a continuing peace. So I give him a lot of credit because he's taking a lot of political hits.
Yeah.
And I think knowing him, he loves these type of situations because most people flee from them. Yeah. He loves complex things and dealing them and working them through. And I think he will hammer home a deal. And I give him tremendous credit for knocking out the nuclear program. That was the real victory. Yeah. And later generations will thank him for that.
Yeah, and we're certainly seeing why every other president has run from this situation and not wanted to deal with it, because you're seeing the complexities of trying to remove this cancer inside Iran. I want to talk about the company here for a second before I let you go. We just had the shareholder meeting. There's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of good information came out of that. We're public now on the stock exchange. I think most people know that. But quite a bit of excitement about the growth of this company. Let's talk about that.
Well, we had a lot of good results to report. A lot of media companies have seen declines. Newsmax was up double-digit not only last year, but in the first quarter of this year. And in our key segments, broadcasting, for instance, was up 20%. That's what we do. We broadcast. Our affiliate license fees for the cable channel that your show airs on, people are watching me today, that was up 75%. Overall, we are projecting double-digit, somewhere in the area of 13% revenue growth this year. We think that number is conservative. We hope to come back in the coming months to look at that number, because we are seeing very strong growth. And we're happy about where the company is going.
Yeah, I mean, well, the television, it's hard to kind of get the beginning going. It's hard to get moving and start making money. But once you get there, it all kind of comes together at the same time. I've worked for a lot of TV companies. It seems like we're right on that moment where you're just about to kind of explode out of it, and there's years of loss that lead to it, and then you go, and then it all takes off at the same time.
Well, I think what's driving this is there's a number of things. One, trust in the Gallup poll. You saw it. That one's accurate. Lowest support and confidence and trust in the media in history. And that's all the big media, ABC, CBS. And I even think a lot of people don't trust Fox anymore. Newsmax is growing pretty much on every platform. We saw on the cable channel, and you were a beneficiary of that, or you helped propel it too, Rob. Ratings, audience reach was up 29% in the first quarter over the previous quarter. Of the first quarter of this year. That's a huge increase in audience reach. We had 17 million people tune into Newsmax on the cable channel alone in April. Wow. Again, a big number. 25 million followers. We broke a record on social media, Facebook, Twitter, X, Truth Social. So the numbers don't lie. We really are exploding. It's just across many platforms. You always remember, Fox News used to be broadcast in 110 million cable homes. It's now down below 60 million people less. The cord cutting has been tremendous. And so a lot of people are going to Newsmax 2, our streaming service, our Newsmax Plus, our streaming application. So we're seeing very big numbers.
Yeah, it is something else. All right, that's good information. Good to know, and great to see how this thing has grown in just the, 6 years that I've been here. Chris Ruddy, good to see you. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Good to be with you.
Good to see you. We are publicly traded now, as I just said. Read more about our company's success, newsmaxinvest.com. And thanks for being part of our news revolution.
The indictment of Castro. A lot of people have suffered very big. The Cuban population of Miami and certainly beyond Miami, people that came there that were decimated, whose families were ruined, appreciate what the Attorney General just did today. We have Cuba on our mind. I think this is a very big day, very important day.
So this is obviously very interesting here, what's happening. The president reacting to the indictment of former Cuban President Raul Castro by the Department of Justice earlier for murder and conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals in connection, the charges in connection to his alleged role in the downing of 2 planes operated by the Miami-based exile group Brothers to the Rescue back in 1996. They killed 4 people. 3 of them were Americans. Raul is now 94 years old. He's the ex-president, and he's currently, of course, still living in Cuba. The indictment comes as it's becoming quite obvious, so that the Trump White House, along with Cuban-American Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they have some plans for Cuba. We're just not exactly sure what's going to happen here. But Cubans in Miami, we can tell you, we're celebrating this moment today. Raul Castro indicted. Trump had this to say about what might come next for the nation just 90 miles to our south.
Been looking for this moment for 65 years, so we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're going to have to help them out. They have no way of living. They have no food. They have no electricity. They have no energy at all. But they do have great people that we're freeing up Cuba.
There's great people that have been very beaten down by this regime for about 70 years. Congressman Carlos Gimenez joins us now. He's a Cuban American as well. Sir, good to see you. I want to just start with your reaction to what the DOJ did today.
Well, it's about 30 years late, but better late than never. I'm very happy, very appreciative of the DOJ, what they did today. President Trump is a man of actions. I remember back in 1996, I was the fire chief of the city of Miami. We were at a big rally in the Orange Bowl after this event. Madeleine Albright went and had some really strong words about what they were going to do, and they did nothing. And so this president is different. And so thank you, President Trump. And it sends a very clear message to the Cuban regime that this president is very, very serious about Cuba and the fact that we cannot have a nation 90 miles from our shore that poses a national security risk to the United States.
Yeah, I totally agree. What exactly do you think we're doing? Because obviously this is a move, but it's part of, I think, something larger, right?
Yeah, this is not a move by itself. We've sanctioned a number of their officials. We're putting as much pressure economically as we can on the island. The island itself, I mean, the regime cannot buy the basic necessities that its people needs. They don't have any fuel. They don't have electricity. If you look at a picture of Cuba at night from satellite, you'll see a little bit of light coming from Havana. The rest of the island is completely dark. People are out in the streets every single night demonstrating. And so, yeah, this is another little nail in the coffin, but it's just one.
Yeah, I was there 6-7 years ago. I saw how these people have been forced to live under this regime. It is terrible. Do you think we're trying to starve this regime out of power, or is it more aggressive than that?
No, look, it's not about starve. We're certainly not going to starve the people. Okay, that's not what we're going to do. We are economically choking them, as much as we can, just like we're doing in Iran with the blockade, right? And so we want that to get a hold. And like I said, the Cuban people have gone into the streets every single night demonstrating, even though, the security forces come out, beat them up, put them in jail. These demonstrations are getting louder and louder and louder as the conditions worsen. But this is all because of the regime. The regime doesn't work, and the regime has led this to this disaster, which is now Cuba. And so, I think the president is going to have a little patience and see if the measures that we're taking right now work in the end, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where this goes. He's also dealing with Iran as well. Congressman, we appreciate you coming on. A big day for the Cuban-American community in this country, and for you, sir. We appreciate you. Coming up here, as I just said, the latest on Iran, including a wild story from the New York Times, the failed plan by Israel to install former Iranian hardliner President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad as the new leader of Iran.
Wake Up America Weekend.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Lauder.
And I'm Kenzie Beach.
It's a Wake Up Weekend with Kyle and Kenzie.
We're here to help kickstart your weekend.
Grab your coffee and join us at 7 a.m. only on Newsmax.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief with our amazing technology. But for so many, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step, using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. It fits virtually into any shoe, is reusable for up to 6 months, and comes with a money-back guarantee. And this Memorial Day, we want to share with deep gratitude, Signal Relief is now available through the VA. Veterans, talk to your healthcare provider to learn more about getting Signal Relief through your VA benefits. Because caring for those who have served matters, whether it's for you or for someone you care about. Go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
Since 1990, the lightweight Craig Cat has meant quality, affordable boating. Florida Sports Magazine called the Craig Cat an absolutely brilliant breakthrough in watercraft design. With the stability and comfort of a large boat, but the fuel efficiency and portability of a small boat, Craig Cat has put the fun back in boating. Craig Cats are also available in both electric and hybrid models. Call Craig Cat now, toll free at 877-999-4CAT, and step into a Craig Cat.
Summer is coming fast. Now you can get your best summer body in just one visit to Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
This summer, I'm excited to not be covered up.
I've got abs again. Sono Bello put me in the right spot to just feel good again.
I feel beautiful. I went from this to this in just one visit.
I feel confident. Micro laser technology permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin in just one visit with less downtime.
My shirts were extra large. Now I'm wearing a bathing suit. It changed my life.
There's no more frustration, just permanent results.
My stomach is gone.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews and expert surgeons. Call now for your personalized consultation. That's over a $250 value. Free. Easy monthly payment options make your best body more affordable than ever. Step into summer with confidence. Call Sono Bello today.
We've been building chainsaws for over 100 years. Now, that century of cutting comes in a mower. New blade, same bloodline. Right now, save $50 on select mowers. Steel.
Is it just the mustache? No. It's the way he brings me a fresh cup of Black Rifle coffee.
Honey, you having a Riley Green dream again?
Just give me 5 more minutes.
Okay.
We're in the final stages of Iran. We'll see what happens. We'll either have a deal or we're going to do some things that are a little bit nasty. But hopefully that won't happen. Everything's gone. Their Navy's gone. Their Air Force is gone. Just about everything. The only question is, do we go and finish it up, or are they going to be signing a document?
All right, so the president's saying today the war with Iran is in its final stages. We've been hearing this for a bit, though. Trump warning if they don't come to a deal, they're going to hit Iran harder than ever before, telling Coast Guard cadets today at their graduation Iran cannot be nuclear.
We will not let Iran have a nuclear weapon. We hit them very hard. But we may have to hit them even harder, but maybe not. But we're not going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon and blow up the entire Middle East, Israel, the entire Middle East, and then come here for you. Not going to happen.
So as the president decides his next move, reports lengthy and dramatic conversations with Netanyahu last night is the report. N12 in Israel reporting that Trump and Netanyahu spoke. It has become clear that Netanyahu believes less in the chances of reaching an agreement and wants to strike. Trump wants to turn over every stone to try and get a deal with Iran. So that's where we are. Maleki is a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. He was born in Iran, fled the country. Fleitz, former CIA analyst, vice chairman of the America First Policy Institute. Gentlemen, good to have you both. It's clear that Trump wants this thing over. He wants to get out of this thing ASAP. Is it possible to do that the right way is the first part of my question. Also, you have Axios reporting that mediators are working on a letter of intent that would formally end the war and launch a 30-day negotiation period to focus on reopening the strait and enriched uranium, which sounds like exactly what Iran would want in this moment. I don't know. Do you think that's even true?
Well, here's the thing, and thanks for having me. You know, President Trump has been very unpredictable in what he wants to do in regards to Iran. And which has been working great. When you deal with a dictatorship, when you deal with a revolutionary regime like the one in Iran, it's good to be unpredictable. And, reports that you're reading, most of these are information that are coming out of the Iranian regime, the rhetoric and propaganda that comes out of Iran, but not really information that is leaking from the negotiations. The way that we were seeing that with Obama administration, Biden administration, a lot of leaks, a lot of information were coming out of the U.S. side. That is not really happening right now. The information we're getting are mostly the ones that are coming from intermediaries who might want to have a deal more than the U.S. government or the Iranians themselves. So I think that I wouldn't really count so much on what we're hearing. But I think one thing that we know for a fact is that President Trump has showed a pattern of really sticking to what he wants with Iran, and he understands the leverage that we have with this regime that we've never had since 1979.
Yeah. Fred, where do you think we're at right now? A lot of people are wondering when this is going to end. You can tell the president is ready to get this thing over with.
I think you're right. The president wants to wrap this up. Newsmax President Chris Ruddy said in a very good Newsmax op-ed on April 16th, there's 9 ways. This is already a conclusive American win. When we try to negotiate with this broken regime, it's like haggling with madmen. They come back with ridiculous claims like we want to control the strait, we want reparations. The president needs to issue an ultimatum. He needs to dictate to a defeated state, this is what you have to do, or we greatly escalate the war and blow you to kingdom come. One of them is you have to free the strait. You have to stop offensive operations everywhere, including your neighbors.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk after that. But I think the conditions are very simple. I think what's remaining of this regime, they understand strength. That's the way to solve the war.
Yeah. I want to get both your reactions to this New York Times story that evidently Israel had a plan in the early moments of the war to install Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was the president of Iran for 8 years back in the early 2000s. He's a hardliner, but Israel apparently had put together some kind of deal with this guy to run the country after they killed the Ayatollah. And it went sideways when they tried to get him out of house arrest, and they injured him, and then he disappeared. Miad, what do you think of an idea like that? I mean, I think they're ready to take just about anything except the current regime.
Yeah, I mean, it's a New York Times article. President Ahmadinejad, when he was in the office, he was a very controversial figure. Anti-Semitism was at its highest peak when he was in the president. The Iranian regime had the highest crackdown probably before this January of this year in Iran during his presidency. And remember, he was also responsible for the kidnapping and the probable death of Bob Levinson, the FBI agent, former FBI agent who was kidnapped in Kish Island, and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad lied about the fact that he was in Iran. So on the U.S. side, we understand that this wouldn't be an option to run the country. From the Israeli side, he's been the most anti-Semit, again, as I said, anti-Semitism was at the highest peak in Iran during his time. If this is true, maybe this was a plan to cause friction within the Iranian regime and create chaos within the political figures that are not the plan to actually put him in charge.
Right. Well, Fred, you're former CIA. You know how these kind of things work. What do you think of that idea, that plan? Is there any way that Israel really wanted Ahmadinejad running Iran?
Well, Ahmadinejad had some kind of differences with the late leader Khamenei on religious grounds. Right. I don't understand it. But look, this guy wasn't just an anti-Semite. He was a Holocaust denier. I'm very suspicious that this is true. It came from the New York Times. It gets a lot of stories wrong. If there was someone in the Israeli government or the U.S. government advocating this, they should be fired, because this guy's not a solution to the radicalism in the Islamic State of Iran. It's a bad idea.
Could have just been an idea to stir up a lot of malcontent and make everybody wonder who the hell's in charge inside of Iran, too, in the middle of a war. Israel's very clever with ideas like that, as we know. Miad, good to see you. Thanks so much. Fred, you too. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Wild hearing in Congress today, how a Democrat-funded nonprofit has been using your money to manufacture racism.
They said, we're going to create the crisis. We're going to manufacture the crisis. And by so doing, they became the standard, the source for determining who's a hate group and who isn't.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finity, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone. Building on my progress without starting over. Weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about newer sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
People always ask, why Patriot Gold Group? With over 10,000 clients to date and over $1 billion in transactions, not a single complaint on the Better Business Bureau. Consumer Affairs top rated for 9 years in a row. Over 2,000 5-star reviews. The only company nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the no fee for life IRA. Gold is up 80% in the last 28 months, 275% since Lehman Brothers collapsed. We are patriots protecting patriots. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Call now, 888-528-4290.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
The Biden administration, they helped make the SPLC the standard. They consulted with the Southern Poverty Law Center. They had quarterly meetings with them. Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General, the lady who runs the Justice Department during the Biden administrations, had quarterly meetings with the Southern Poverty Law Center.
This is House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan there. An explosive hearing on the far-left government-funded Southern Poverty Law Center today. A fully corrupted organization, Marxist nonprofit, indicted on fraud charges, allegedly laundering donated money, at least $3 million without the knowledge of their donors, what they're doing with it. Money being used to perpetuate what has become the lifeblood of the Democrat Party, racism. What would they have without it? Manufacturing the hate that the SPLC had claimed to be fighting, paying informants and groups like the Ku Klux Klan. The Biden administration worked hand in glove with the SPLC, holding weekly meetings. The SPLC even helped train Biden DOJ prosecutors and was given exclusive access to so-called federal hate crime databases. So who's designated as hateful in this country? Turning Point, Prager University, Family Research Council, Moms for Liberty, Catholics, all of them labeled in some way as some kind of hate group. One of the witnesses, Tyler O'Neill from the Daily Signal, exposing this fake hate machine.
The Poverty Palace has an endowment, has assets of $822 million. The SPLC began to publish a hate map that plots mainstream conservative and Christian groups alongside Klan chapters. The map also includes groups that barely exist, like a Confederate memorabilia shop and a convent, and found that it exaggerated hate by at least 267%.
Wild, wild, wild. All right, Tyler O'Neill joins us now, author of the book Making Hate Pay, The Corruption of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Did a great job today. Also, we have Dr. Carol Swain, tenured professor at Princeton and Vanderbilt Universities, both witnesses today, and good to have you both here. Tyler, tell me what we know about the SPLC and how this organization has changed from, I think, trying to fight off racism to trying to protect it in a way because it's so critical, I think, for their politics.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So I think the main thing here, the SPLC has had 3 iterations. First, it was a noble nonprofit that aimed to represent poor people in the South with legal representation. Then it started going after the Ku Klux Klan. And by the way, lawyers said that it was so easy to sue the Klan into bankruptcy, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. So the entire legal team actually quit during that time because they wanted to help the people who really needed it, and they thought going after the Klan was actually getting away from the SPLC's real mission, which, that's something you don't often hear. But then the SPLC ran out of grand dragons to slay, and so they started putting ever more mainstream conservatives and Christians on their hate map. Their Klan Watch program became Hate Watch. They put out the hate map, and then they started putting mainstream conservatives on there.
Dr. Swain, I mean, it is surreal to see how this works. And it does, when you think about politically, it makes perfect sense. You can't get rid of the boogeyman. You have to make sure that racism stays alive. And that was, the whole purpose was to fight it.
I agree. And I warned back in 2009 in a op-ed piece that the Southern Poverty Law Center was engaging in mission creep, that they had, that they were slipping away from their original mission, and they were targeting conservatives instead of the groups that they originally
had set out to fight.
Worked to, yes.
Yeah, it is something. I mean, the show's tight tonight. I got to leave it there, but I appreciate you guys coming on, and what a wild day that was on Capitol Hill. That was a great hearing. You both did very well. Good to see you both. Dr. Carol Swain, Tyler O'Neill, good to see you guys. Thanks. L.A. Mayor Karen Bass called out on being in Ghana during the L.A. fires, despite having plenty of warnings not to go.
He said that he asked for an interview for a couple years. And
well. I'm Elmer Heinrich. I'm in the nutritional business, primarily selling plant-derived minerals. Now, after being in this business for 43 years, owning a cancer hospital in Mexico, and associating with some of the most knowledgeable nutritional people in the world, I came to this conclusion. The world is sick due to a lack of minerals in our food, which is caused by a lack of minerals in topsoil. There is an incredible and proven nutritional product on the market that can overcome this problem. It's Immuno 150. This unusual food supplement contains 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 additional nutrients. There's nothing like it. Now watch the 3 videos on our website and place your order for what may be the best food supplement in the world. Now Immuno 150 is different, it's real, it's powerful, it's helped thousands, and we believe it enjoys the highest reorder rate in the industry. Thank you and God bless.
If you've lived through numerous presidents and multiple recessions, you've seen what happens to the world economy when things get rough. And if you're looking for protection for your hard-earned savings, then look no further than American Hartford Gold. Unlike stocks, crypto, real estate, gold and silver can protect you against inflation and recessions. It's a hedge against all the things you don't want to happen to your hard-earned dollars. And with American Hartford Gold, you'll get the #1 precious metals dealer in the country and their support in making sure your money is protected by gold and silver.
Makes me feel secure having that investment there because it's not fluctuating as the market is, and it's something that you can just hold on to.
In today's day and age, you want to invest in something that is real. I think everyone should pick up the phone and call American Hartford Gold.
American Hartford Gold is the trusted leader in precious metals. Our dedicated team will work closely with you to guide you through the purchase process to help secure your future. Plus, every purchase comes with a 100% satisfaction guarantee.
Owning gold gives me a sense that it's not going to just evaporate before my very eyes. I can hold it in my hand, I can touch it, I can go spend it.
I really look at American Hartford Gold in the category of a friend, somebody that I could trust and somebody that I have confidence in.
Whether you've never owned precious metals or you're an experienced buyer, American Hartford Gold's winning reputation and best-in-class customer service will keep you coming back for years. You've worked hard over a lifetime, and that money deserves the protection that you can only find in precious metals. When you call today, ask about the exclusive Freedom Package for new customers and get your free guide to buying precious metals. Call now.
As part of our special TV offer, when you call now, you can get our free guide and the Freedom Package. This includes up to $20,000 in free silver on qualifying purchases, plus free account setup, free shipping, and more. Call now, 855-313-1143. That's 855-313-1143.
Welcome back. Looking to fight off, time now for news from the left. Looking to fight off Spencer Pratt, LA Mayor Karen Bass called out by CNN for being in Ghana, getting greased up by a foreign government as her city burned down. Bass has long claimed that she was really never warned that she shouldn't go. That is a full-blown lie, and she got called out hard here.
There's a new book out by Jonathan Vigliotti of CBS News called Torched. And he says, quote, Bass had been briefed before her departure about the National Weather Service's fire models. That book makes the point that you being in Ghana actually hurt the city's response.
No, that's actually not true either.
Yeah.
So I'll have to read this book. And it would have been helpful if the author would have interviewed me.
Well, he said that he asked for an interview for a couple years, and he never. Yeah.
Well, that's news to me.
Oh, yeah, that's news to me. These lying communists are the worst. Bass also shrugged off questions about her pledge to end homelessness in the city by 2026, which is right now. Next up, meet the wacko frontrunner in a southern Texas House race. Her name is Maureen Galindo. She's a sex therapist. And she's calling to transform an immigration facility into a prison for American Zionists with a castration center. So, it's a kinky one. Maureen defending her remarks on Instagram, having this to say. Take a look.
When I say that I want billionaire Zionists in prison, that does not mean I want Jews in internment camps. So why am I getting a whole bunch of death threats and MAGA insults? Which actually makes sense, I realize. Like, MAGA and Jewish Zionists apparently are the exact same people. They talk the exact same way, and that's because MAGA is the developing Christian Zionism.
Again, where do we find that's also Texas, just like our boy in the A block. I mean, it just, where do you find these people? And she's winning. Welcome to the Democrat Party. Jeff Bezos destroys the Mamdani agenda next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms.
The stabbing, burning pain in your feet is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream, the only thing that works for my diabetic neuropathy.
Available in foot care and diabetic aisles.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
I'm Guy Fieri, and I'm asking for your help in supporting the Tunnel to Towers Foundation as it continues to pay off the mortgages for fallen first responders and Gold Star families who have died in the line of duty and left behind young children. Not only that, but they are also building mortgage-free smart homes for catastrophically injured service members and have recently committed to eradicating homelessness amongst our veterans. We ask you to join us on our mission to do good. Go to T2T.org and donate today.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Mike Hammond of Signal Relief. We've helped nearly 700,000 feel relief with our amazing technology. But for so many, it's our feet that hurt. And when they hurt, our walks get shorter, activities are skipped, and the moments we love start slipping away. That's why we created the Signal Step using the same proven technology people already trust from Signal Relief. It fits virtually into any shoe, is reusable for up to 6 months, and comes with a money-back guarantee. And this Memorial Day, we want to share with deep gratitude, Signal Relief is now available through the VA. Veterans, talk to your healthcare provider to learn more about getting Signal Relief through your VA benefits. Because caring for those who have served matters, whether it's for you or for someone you care about. Go to signalstep.com and get relief today.
And finally tonight, Jeff Bezos blasting Mamdani's big government dream.
If we ran Amazon the way New York City runs their school system, right, your packages would take 6 weeks to arrive. We'd have to charge you a $100 delivery fee. And then when the package did finally arrive, it'd have the wrong item in it anyway.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's why we laugh so hard when these people tell us that government, just like Mamdani does, government is going to bring us all the prosperity in the world. Bezos then went to work on the left's dream of finally taxing all these damn billionaires to the max.
People want me to pay more billions, right? Then let's have that debate. But don't pretend, that that's going to solve the problem. You could double the taxes I pay, and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens. There are more examples. Why is rent expensive? What's really causing high rent is government intervention.
Finnerty, we don't have a revenue problem in this country. We have a spending problem. And you could take all the money from every billionaire, you could kill them all and take all their money. They'd burn through that in about 3-4 months, and then they'd be coming after people with 100 million.
Wouldn't it be great just to have like $1 billion though?
Yeah.
Like I always think about this. People say like they're always like, oh, they try to be noble, especially like local news anchors. They're like, what would you do if you won the lottery? And the first thing they say is they're like, oh, I'd donate to charity, and then I'd take care of my parents. You'd never see me again.
You'd never see me again.
You would never. I wouldn't call.
Thing.
I wouldn't take anything out of my office.
Vanish like a poop of smoke.
Like just
You'd never see me again.
You're gonna give up your news show that day. Sayonara.
You're not supposed to say that on the news show.
That's why people like us, because we are authentic. We're real. I'm not like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna donate it, and then I would think, no, gone. All right? Cheetah print bathrobe in the Caribbean, umbrella in my drink, gone with the wind. All right.
You just made me stay a minute longer than I was supposed to.
It was worth it, Rob.
It was worth it.
It was worth it. All right, thanks. Finnerty starts right now.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.